The psychotic drowns in the same waters in which the mystic swims with delight. That's a quote by Joseph Campbell. This is a quote I've always loved. And I have not actually really read much of Joseph Campbell. I don't really know much about him, but he's famously known for The Hero's Journey. And this quote is... it always comes back to me every now and again, and I enjoy it. So what does this quote mean? Well, the way that I see this is basically... Well, first of all, the way we experience life, our quality of life, it all depends on our mind. It all depends on what meaning that we're fabricating. It all depends on how we're perceiving life, how the mind is making things to be how we think it is to be, right? And so when you kind of realize that you don't really know anything to be true, when you don't really know what's real, is this thought real? Is the way I'm perceiving life and myself and other people the way that it actually is? Or maybe no, maybe it's this way or that way, whatever. And you kind of lose touch with reality, right? You lose touch with what's real. What is real, man? Like, I don't know. I don't know. So the psychotic is has resistance to that, and it's like, oh shit, I don't know, and gets caught up in the mind. But I think we only see this as negative is because, like, everybody else in the world is in this shared hallucination, this collective perception that is shared, and it's just common consensus that we're all living in. And so when you start to think about other things, when you start to perceive reality in totally different ways, then you start to think that, oh, perhaps maybe I'm going psychotic. Am I fucking going crazy here? Shit. But it's only because you have reified this collective perception, this shared hallucination, to be what's real. And so when you start to see life in a different way, but then you start to think like, oh, perhaps I'm the crazy one, you're only doing that because you think that the common perception, the collective perception, the shared hallucination is not a hallucination, but is like the actuality of reality. But again, it can also be very disorienting when you start to see that that so many people, basically everyone, is sharing this common hallucination, right? This perception that the way we see ourselves and life and all the meaning that we have about what we are and what the world is and all this. It's very disorienting when you kind of step outside that and start to see that there's so many different ways of seeing things, and you don't really know what's actually going on. You don't really know what's true. The common consensus is just one way of looking at things, one way of, perhaps this is the way it is, perhaps it's the way it is. But so to step outside that is like, oh shit, now I'm all alone, I'm all fucking alone, and it's like, shit, is nobody else seeing this? So you go kind of crazy a bit from that. This is common on the path of spiritual awakening. Of course, there's that phase of feeling like you're fucking crazy, you feel like you're going insane, but so reality is what Buddhists would say is that reality lacks inherent existence, which means which just means basically that it lacks, like, things lack independent existence. Nothing can exist independently. Nothing can exist on its own. Everything that exists arises through this interdependent, infinite web of causes and conditions. And so everything includes everything in it, right? Like, you couldn't be, like, you think you're like this body, right? This body couldn't be without the sun, without the rain, without the soil, right? It's all this one interconnected working, and you couldn't exist without the earth to support you standing on it. You couldn't exist, without the water or the sunlight or the food that you eat, or all the ways in which you think that couldn't exist without other people to learn language from and connect with. You wouldn't really have any kind of thoughts in your own language if there were no other people. So it's like, who you think you are, it cannot be this separate one entity, individual. Who you are is everything, because you are as much as the sun and the rain as you are this nose and this head and this, you know what I mean? Like, everything is supported by everything else. And things are also dependent upon your mind, how you perceive it as well. So everything's interconnected, and you see, mind actually affects reality, and reality affects mind. It's of the same working, really. And so anyway, there's this, and so then we get back to the quote, when you kind of start to see more, open yourself up to more that exists outside this common consensus, then if you resist it, if it's too scary for you to handle, then you're flailing about, like, oh my goodness, and you're drowning in that water. But if you can accept it, if you can just see that you don't really know what is true. You don't really know what is, like, there's no reality that you can hold on to. There's nothing you can really hold on to. When you let go of that, then it's like you play with it. The philosophy of absurdism kind of comes to mind. It's like, okay, you don't really know what's going on. You don't really know what's true, what's real. But something's going on, so you might as well just fucking enjoy it, So you swim with it, You swim with delight. You swim with delight, right? I'm not really sure if I'm making much sense here. I'm making a bit of sense, but it's just because I haven't completely understood kind of what I'm talking about here in relation to, like, how the mind is interdependent with everything else, like, again, I can't really speak about it, but but of course, it's like, it's obvious to see that it's like, if you are in some kind of state of mind, some kind of state of being, and you're perceiving life to be some kind of way, and you're changing how this, you change your perception, which changes how this body and mind functions. Obviously, that's going to change how you see reality and how you operate in reality. And reality is going to be affected by that. And there's going to be this, everything's just like intertwined, like, I don't really know how to explain it much more than that, but yeah, so the psychotic drowns in the same waters in which the mystic swims with delight. A lot of people are trying to hold on to meaning, trying to hold on to a theory of everything, trying to find out what's like the truth and reality and whatever. I used to be in this, I was like, what is the truth of reality? What's like the foundational structure of it? I need to know like the grand theory of everything, right? I need to know everything. And the thing is that whatever you know, you can't verify it. As like, if you can have some kind of theory of everything, if you have like, you try and figure out what's like the absolute truth, like some kind of absolute truth, some kind of like foundational structure of reality. It's like, but thinking about all that is just thoughts happening within your own experience. Like, see, when I started inquiring into this, like early on in my journey of like, I first started getting into like science, really. I remember a moment I was like researching, because I was very into like science and this eco kind of stuff. And I remember searching on Google, like, what is energy? What actually is energy? And I remember looking, I was like, oh yeah, science will be able to explain away this for me, of course. Energy, yeah, of course, we should know what energy is. It's all around, right? And I couldn't fucking find an answer. And I was like, what? No one knows what energy is? As like some kind of like scientific like explanation. Like there just wasn't one. I was like kind of baffled by that. But so when you start this inquiry of like, I need to know the truth of everything, I need to know like the grand theory of everything, it's like usually you come from the assumption that you are a separate individual in reality, and you have a subjective experience of the objective world, and you're trying to find the truth of the objective world, right? But as time goes on, you realize that you can't fucking do that, because you've only got a subjective experience, and everything that you think is an objective world is just a subjective perception. And to even say that is saying too much, because that presupposes the duality of subject and object, when actually there is not even a subject and object. There's just experience, right? There's not even a subjective and objective experience. Do you know what I mean? There's just this, and you can't even call it objective or subjective. So what was I saying? So you're trying to find out like the theory of everything in an objective world that you think exists. You assume that you are a separate individual in an objective world. And so when I was getting into this phase of being really interested in science, I was also very interested in like outer space. I was very like moved by this profundity of like fuck, we're on planet Earth, dude. We're on planet Earth, and like, what the fuck is this? Like, is no one fucking questioning this? I was like dumbfounded by this, like looking, like everybody in my experience was all about like, you know, get jobs and like this very like contracted, like just selfish kind of thing. And I was dumbfounded by the fact that it's like, is no one really like getting up every morning and being like, what the fuck is this? What are we doing here? We're on this like marble, this fucking ball in the middle of nowhere, and we're fucking tiny. We're no different from like ants just crawling about with no meaning. And I was just like, how is nobody like going, what the fuck about this, you know? And you keep going out and it's like this, like space, outer space is fucking massive, dude. And like no one's questioning this. We're all just like believing that jobs are real, that money is real and all this, and we believe that all these things are important. And this was actually a great perception to have that I had, because it took me out of a lot of anxiety and depression, you know, to bring on that perception of like, oh, actually, yeah, hold on. Like looking up at the stars, looking up at the moon and shit, and be like, fuck, like there's nothing to worry about. Like what I'm worrying about is just, I'm worrying about because I'm like entrenched in these like ways of seeing things that society has said that this is the way to see things, you know, like this money is real, jobs are real, and you got to be worried about this and that and that and that. And so I was in that perception, right? This kind of cosmic perception. And let me just change that. Whatever, not too bad. But I thought that was real. And see, I don't know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But what I've come to realize is that, you see, because I was trying to stay in that perception, because I thought that that was like the truth. You know, and I thought that, okay, I just have to stay in this kind of cosmic perception every single moment, right? Because that would take away all my worries, all my anxieties and whatever. And there was a great suffering because of that, you know, there was a great struggle, because I was craving that perception. I was trying to hold on to it when it would pass away, you know. And, you know, as Buddhism says, once again, you know, suffering happens because of craving and aversion, you know. Things come and go on their own accord, and you can't really hold on to anything because everything's coming and going. So anyway, but what I've come to realize is that there's like, you can't be sure of any objective reality. And see, it's fucking annoying, man. Like, I wish I could be, because like, when I had the perception of this, like this cosmic perception that felt so like, wow, like it feels like you're tapping into truth, you know, it feels like you're really tapping into like something so much bigger than all this petty human bullshit, right? And when I was in this cosmic perception, so obsessed with outer space and galaxies and stars and planets and shit like this, and science, and, you know, watching fucking Neil deGrasse Tyson's Cosmos, you know, just so immersed in this. Because I thought it was true, right? But then you know, as time went on, I realized that like, I don't fucking know anything to be an objective reality. And it takes away the kind of like, so it's like, now I look up at the stars and sure, like sometimes I can feel that meaning, feel that perception, feel that cosmic perception. And it's like, yeah, wow, that's cool. But I can't ever like fully buy into it as much as I used to. And there's a kind of disillusionment with that, and a kind of like feeling disheartened about that. It's like, oh damn, you know, because now when I look up at the stars, it's like, yeah, maybe I can get into that perception. But also, it's like, what am I actually looking at as a matter of like sensate phenomena, as like just direct experience quality? Or what am I actually experiencing? They're just little white dots, you know. They're just little white dots, you know, and unless you place meaning on them, then they're just little white dots. And it's kind of like, Oh, damn, dude, fuck. But this is what I'm talking about. Like, with the psychotic and the mystic, the psychotic might realize that they don't know any kind of objective truth, objective reality that exists outside their subjective experience, right? And they might start to see that they don't know that and look up at the stars and be like, fuck, dude, like, you know, like, what's fucking real, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, the mystic just goes, right, okay, well, I've just got subjective experience, isn't it? Just got this sensate experience, phenomena, qualia. And you just swim with delight in the absurdity of not knowing what the fuck is reality. But again, it's not easy, man, because you want to hold on to knowledge that you think is like true knowledge. You want to hold on to a reality that you think is real, but you don't actually know if it is or not. But rest assured, again, like I say, the mystic swims with delight. There is hope there here. If you're feeling troubled about this, then just know that there's many mystics of the past and present that have done what I'm talking about, have, you know, maybe at first felt troubled by this, but have gone through that process. And, you know, you swim with delight in the unknown of reality. And it's not so bad, man. You know, it ain't so bad. So if you want to talk more about this, then come join our online community, the Truth Playground, the top link in the description. And this is a place for us to connect about this kind of stuff. So please like and subscribe. That helps me out a lot. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.